Eng highways at dusk, confessions by mile marker. My name is Seth and I choreograph impatience. I'm a highway operations supervisor, which is the polite way of saying I watch the city's arteries from a wall of screens and decide where mercy goes. On paper, I deploy incident response trucks, authorize lane closures, time the metering lights, and write reports that turn chaos into charts. In practice, I translate appetite. Commuters want time to apologize for itself. Contractors want lanes like blank checks. Politicians want ribbon cuttings that come with miracles. I carry a radio that lies less than most men, a vest that smells like night rain and bad decisions, and a little silver clicker I use to count a truth no one wants to hear. We are always one brake tap away from confession. I live with Tomas. He prints signs for a living, detours, speed limits. The occasional billboard that promises a mortgage can also be a hug. He comes home with ink in the webbing of his fingers and a laugh like a lane opening. He kisses me the way he kerns type, precise, patient, unafraid to move something a millimeter if it makes the sentence true. We have a rule on an index card under a magnet shaped like a mile marker. Say it by sunrise. We learned the hard way that midnight honesty turns into theater and lunch honesty turns into alibis. Dawn doesn't negotiate. The Tuesday the algorithms behaved and I didn't, a rainstorm sat on the city like a secret. At 01:14, a semi jackknifed and spilled 47,000 pounds of lettuce into the far left lane. At 02:06, a tour bus took an exit that wasn't ready to be a stage. At 03:29, an SUV kissed a guardrail like a regret and spun a rosary out of air. At 04:47, with our sweep trucks doing heroics and the model blinking green like a lie it believes, my pocket buzzed with the joint email Tomas and I use for deliveries and receipts that need a witness. Thank you for your stay, the Clover. Time, 12:083:02. Points, 200 added. Sunrise stood up in my chest like an old friend who had earned the right to interrupt. I didn't call him. Our second rule is for everything not yet a disaster, 2 loops around the catwalk before nomming it. I walked the balcony above the operations floor, past the bank of radios murmuring bedtimes for 9 different counties, past the weather feed that had learned to sigh. The city breathed through my wall of screens. The highway said the sentence asphalt prefers. You already know. He introduced himself with a hand that had already memorized mine. Rowan Vale, he said. The badge around his neck said infrastructure strategist, a job that means convincing power to pretend to be permission. He'd been contracted by the governor's office to optimize traffic narratives, which is the kind of sentence that sounds like it wants to help until you realize it's hungry. He stood at my shoulder while I brought 2 tow trucks into a dance and watched the way I watched. You keep the miles honest, he said. I keep them in order, I said. Drink after shift, he asked, the question elegant as a zipper. The Clover Bar does apology on draft. Tomas texted a photo of a sign he'd just run. Road work ahead in perfect, federal, saintly highway Gothic. We fixed a typo on an exit today and saved a marriage, he wrote. Sunrise. I sent him a heart and a mile marker and meant both. The Clover Bar forgives tax and memory. Rowan sat in the corner where a lamp did him favors. He asked what it feels like to close a lane and open an artery for a stranger who will never know your name. I told him it feels like carrying someone's heart across a room without dropping it. He touched the back of my hand with 2 fingers like a medic checking for live. He didn't say, here. The elevator handled that and I let it. His room smelled like citrus and carpet designed to pretend. He kissed like a man who had been applauded for restraint and had decided to audition hunger. He pressed me against the window, and the expressway below looped its necklace like something that had forgiven itself. He was generous where biographies fund generosity, and selfish where a mouth remembers ethics can be on hold. I put my hands where agreements live. We left the lamp on because daylight had been part of the bargain since the lobby. After, he lay on his back and watched the smoke alarm blink like regret. "You'll forgive him," he said, meaning Tomas, meaning the man who believes commas can save lives. "I'll speak by sunrise," I said. He smiled like he'd invented the schedule. Tomas was home when I came in, asleep on the couch with his forearm over his eyes, dried ink like constellations. At 06:02 we stood under the mile marker magnet and I told him nouns. Hotel, elevator, mouth, hands, yes. I didn't try to petition the nouns into better grammar. He listened like a person who has stood on a shoulder when the view was bad. "Do you love him?" he asked, which is that strange mercy men find when they want to be right less than they want to be honest. "I love the hour where nobody needs me to count," I said. He nodded, took the marker from the magnet and wrote under our rule in neat freight lettering, "No rooms we can't name at this table. If something breaks, we break it before dusk together." He underlined together twice, capped the marker, and kissed my temple like a sentence had just decided how to end. Rowan did not behave like a man collecting a single miscalculation. He hovered by my console with a consultant's humility and the appetite of a hawk. He sent me a photo of the ramp at dawn with the caption "Proof," like light was a witness statement. He learned 2 troopers' names and used them like he'd bought them. He told a TV producer how to say "throughput" without laughing. He smiled at my models as if math had learned to flirt. The city's gossip vertical put up a grainy still from the Clover's elevator. My shoulder, his mouth, a caption that tried to be clever about high occupancy. Tomas didn't forward it. He printed it, taped it inside the cabinet where we keep spices, and took it down at sunrise to make room for a list. Lemons, bandages, ink remover, mercy. This is how he archives. Nothing heavy where daily hands reach. Props are punctual. The Clover called to say housekeeping had found a ring under a chair in a room tied to the email I use when I want receipts to whisper. Thin gold, engraved R+S inside like arithmetic trying to call itself fate. Not mine. The clerk asked if I wanted to collect. "Hold for owner," I said with the voice I use on the radio when I need a lane by the grace of 10,000 strangers. Work tried to rescue me with physics. A sinkhole flirted with an off-ramp. A cattle truck learned the limits of optimistic geometry. A bride texted the dot number asking whether love counted as an emergency. I dispatched, denied, approved, apologized. Rowan texted, "You're very good when the room is afraid," and I typed, "I prefer accurate," then deleted it because accuracy is hard to flirt with. Then the little red light blinked where red had no business being. Security pinged me from the field about a thing that thinks it's a secret. They'd been sweeping the reversible lane control cabinets and found a thumb-sized cell modem taped inside, cheap and patient, chattering at odd hours with a private address behind a public office's firewall. Its tiny light beat like illicit grammar. The sticker on its battery pack belonged to a consultancy hired by the governor's media team to monitor narrative velocity. Rowan had mentioned them over bourbon, as if saying a name were a spell. I peeled the modem off with a plastic scraper, gloved because rumor is infectious, and set it in a bag. Legal wrote a memo with "regrettable" 4 times and "consent" twice. We added a decal to every cabinet door any camera could see. External devices by authorization only. The governor's comms shop said they had intended to measure traffic sentiment, which is like deciding to go fishing by putting dynamite in a lake and asking it how it felt. The city muttered. The expressway blinked. I told my crews to check every box for ambition. I told Tomas by sunrise. He made tea because coffee thinks too quickly. Are we being interesting, he asked, or are we being us? He asks it like a rail crossing asks for the horn. Us, I said, and felt something in my shoulders settle that had been auditioning disaster. Rowan tried a finale he must have practiced in other lobbies. He stood by our blank sign board, where we write the morning's closures, with the ring between his fingers so the engraving flashed like a dare. Say my name, he said softly. He meant Rowan and also every jurisdiction that thinks syllables are a deed. Rowan, I said, because facts deserve a voice. Then I added exit. He pocketed the ring with a grin people mistake for kindness and said, "You're precise." I prefer accurate, I said, and watched understanding struggle with habit. If you came for erotics notarized, here is what I can file without lying. There was a wall and a yes and hands where we said hands would be, a mouth that believed in the moment more than the man. The lamp stayed on because daylight had been written into the contract when the elevator doors shut. It was heat without metaphor, a brief sabotage of counting that made silence feel like a public good. If you came for intrigue with garnish, there was a ring with arithmetic engraved inside, a cell modem taped where only patience goes, an elevator camera that believes it's important, a consultant who confuses narrative with infrastructure. If you came for redemption, highways don't sell it. We sell detours. The modem turned into policy, and then a sweep, then a sticker on every cabinet that says consent is not implied. The firm was dismissed by a statement with values parked between commas like a police cruiser at a speed trap. We added a question to our shift checklist. Who benefits if this stays plugged in? The bride found an open lane and married into traffic as if it would never hard brake. The ring's other initial showed up in a suit. Carter, there is always a Carter, arrived with a lawyer whose kindness had been ironed and retrieved the band like a man reconciling the math in his mouth. He nodded at me in a lobby where varnish pretends to be proof. I nodded back with the face operators use when wind decides to be honest. Tomas and I practiced boring until it remembered how to be a privilege. One morning he put his hand at my throat with the kind of pressure that is only a question and asked here. I said now, because consent keeps better time than lust. After, he laughed into my shoulder like a sign falling into alignment. We ate toast with butter that forgave nothing and apologized for less. The lamp stayed on. Work stayed work. A convoy of snowplows practiced choreography beneath a sunrise that couldn't be bothered. A deer chose grace and against habit made it. A motorcycle club waved at my camera, and I waved back in a way the union manual covers under morale. The city flowed, tapped brakes, flowed again. I walked the catwalk and counted how many screens were telling me the truth. Sometimes at 03:00, I stand in the glass box and watch tail lights stream like honest prayer. The highway hums a note I believe in against my better judgment. I think of my father teaching me how to ratchet a strap over a load, tight enough to sing, loose enough not to sulk. I think of the index card on our fridge and how paper breathes, and how we refuse to laminate anything that still needs to learn. I think of a ring engraved with arithmetic, and how algebra can make fools of men who want nouns to behave. We added a line to our card because rules like company. In Tomas's precise print, if you burn something, do it where I can help find water. The magnet holds. The sign over our sink is not a sermon, but it keeps finding our eyes. Rowan will find another operations room to haunt, another bar to practice sincerity in, another ring to engrave with the alphabet pretending to be fate. I will still carry a radio, a vest, and the difficult habit of being precise only when accuracy has already been respected. For a few hours at a time, I wave strangers through a city we share, and I get them where they said they'd go without making them name me. For a few hours at a time, I keep my mouth for promises. Then I go home if the storm allows it, stand under a little mile-marker magnet with a man who kerns kisses and say the thing. We leave the lamp on or off as needed. And when the highway gets its bright idea and tries to improvise, I breathe, I lift my hand, and I tell impatience gently which lane to take.